Does anyone remember that Lego Indiana Jones video game from back in like the 2000s? It was the follow-up to Lego Star Wars. I remember having it for the Wii back in the day. Good times. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. So Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade is the third Indiana Jones movie. I guess you could call it the final film of the original Indiana Jones trilogy. It was released in 1989, which is 5 years after the release of Temple of Doom. These days, that would be considered a long wait. And yes, just to make sure you know, I'm talking about the Indiana Jones series, because we have a 5th installment coming out this June, The Dial of Destiny. I've talked about Raiders, I've talked about Temple of Doom, now we have hit Last Crusade. So Last Crusade takes place in 1938, so finally we got one that takes place after Raiders of the Lost Ark. Everyone's favorite archaeological adventurer is back, and this time he's searching for his old man, his dad, his pops. Because those damn Nazis are back, and this time they're searching for the Holy Grail. Yeah, the Cup of Christ itself, which is said to grant eternal life to whoever drinks from it. And so we're off to Venice, Italy, we're off to Austria, Germany, off to another adventure keeping up with the Joneses. Now, I remember back in like 2008 when I was watching the original trilogy for the first time, getting ready for the fourth one. I remember this one being my favorite. And I'm pretty sure that was the last time I even watched these movies at all. Now, 15 years later, I think this one is still my favorite, because I had a blast watching this last night. This movie, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, takes it back to what was so great about Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is, it's a treasure hunt movie. It's an archaeological quest. Because if you look at Temple of Doom, right? Temple of Doom was more of a predicament than anything else, if I can say it like that. Raiders was, we are on the hunt for a historical artifact, the Ark of the Covenant, in a race against the Nazis. Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones just found himself in this situation that he had to get out of. Neither Raiders nor Last Crusade is like that, which would make Temple of Doom the most unique of this original trilogy. But yeah, Last Crusade feels more like Raiders of the Lost Ark than Temple of Doom does, which I think is a good thing. I get that Temple of Doom wanted to do something different, which I do give it props for, but ultimately I feel more comfortable and at home with Last Crusade. Alright, now that we have that soapbox out of the way, let's talk about this movie. Like I said, in this one, Indiana Jones is on the hunt for his dad. Indy's father, Henry Jones Sr., is played by the wonderful, great, fantastic legend himself, Sean Connery, the original James Bond. Now, my history with Sean Connery movies is kind of rocky-ish. I've seen all his James Bond films, and I've seen this. That's pretty much it. I need to see Hunt for the Red October. But that being said, though, I love Sean Connery in this movie. His character is like the leading expert on the Holy Grail, hence the reason why the Nazis kidnapped him, hence the reason why Indiana Jones is on the hunt for him. But he's cantankerous, he's kind of eccentric, he is kind of crazy, and when the two of them eventually reunite, the chemistry on screen is just the best. Like, I thought Indiana Jones, like, the two leads in the Indy films are usually like him and some chick. That's how it was for the past two films. But in this one, it's funny, because it starts out and it kind of tricks you into believing that it's going to be Indy and this Elsa chick, and they're going to be the leads of the film, but it's really not like that. The two leads of the film are Indiana Jones and his father. And I love the dialogue they share together, because we really get to see a different side of Indiana Jones that we haven't seen before. A more vulnerable side. We learned that Henry Jones Sr. was obsessed with finding the Holy Grail for pretty much his entire life, which led him to be neglectful of his son growing up. So it's pretty much like Indiana Jones has daddy issues. Like, you were never there for me, you were too busy being obsessed over your Holy Grail hunt, and now you've dragged me into this mess, congratulations. So this ends up being a father-son bonding movie, which is awesome. The two of them grow closer throughout the film, and it's one of the strongest elements of the movie.
You know, sharing your adventures is an interesting experience.
Now that being said, let's talk about Dr. Elsa Schneider, played by Alison Doody. She's pretty much the female lead of this film, and not only is she, in my opinion, the hottest chick of the Indiana Jones series, but she's also one of the most interesting. Because when she first meets up with Indy in Venice, Italy, I was like, is this gonna be another cheesy romance like the last movie? Some of the banter they have back and forth, I was like, she's not the best actress. But then something happens, I don't want to spoil, but I was like, oh, that's new. I've never seen an Indy chick like that, that's cool. I do actually want to give props to this character because she kept my interest throughout the entire movie. I kept my eyes on her. I was like, what's she gonna do next? That was neat. As for the main villain of this film, Walter Donovan, he's kinda cool. He's played by Julian Glover. He does come across as pretty threatening, but at the same time, he's pretty much just like any other Indiana Jones villain. Just there to be the villain to get the ball rolling for Indy. One thing I thought was just okay about this film is the fact that it starts out with this prologue we get to see a young Indiana Jones played by River Phoenix, and the movie actually explains, like in this one scenario, how he got his fear of snakes, how he got his whip, how he got his hat. And while this prologue was fun to watch and it is a cool, unexpected beginning to this movie, I couldn't help but think, why did he have to get all of that in one go? It reminded me of Solo: A Star Wars Story, which is kind of ironic, in that in this one adventure he got all this iconic stuff that we know him for later down the line. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm quite buying that. Although I did hear that this would eventually spawn that Young Indiana Jones TV series, so I guess that's not a bad thing. I mean, I've never seen an episode of that show, but it did keep the franchise going, and that's not bad. So that prologue does have some give and take for me. Most of the action scenes in this film are pretty cool, although I don't know if they're going to stand out in my mind as much as like the minecart chase from Temple of Doom, or the truck chase from Raiders. I mean, in this movie we have the scene with the big tank, and it is fun until, in my opinion, it does get drawn out for a little longer than it probably should have. I don't know, just at a point I was like, I get it, there's conflict here, can we move on with the plot? Everyone's chasing each other, the Nazis are chasing the Joneses, and Salah's back in this movie, once again played by John Rhys-Davies. That's cool, because I really like that character. But the action's going on, and at a point I was like, alright, I'm gonna get out my phone and see what's up, because the plot's not really moving. Doesn't change the fact, though, that once that action scene was done, the plot picked up and I was right back in it. And I gotta say, man, I love the final challenges at the end of this movie, where they're in the cave, and Indiana Jones has to go through this series of challenges to get to the Holy Grail. Watching these, I was like, yeah, I remember this. This is reminding me of what I love about the Tomb Raider games, is that they're treasure hunts with challenging puzzles. To me, that's just so engaging, you know? You're trying to solve it, and when you eventually do figure it out, you're like, oh my god, that's so cool. It makes you feel like you're a part of it, you know? Never a bad thing. So with everything I really do love about this movie, it really goes to show how good it is when the least impressive thing about it is John Williams' score. I don't know, just when the credits started rolling, I realized that there was no real moment in the film when the score really jumped out at me. I mean, aside from when the main Indiana Jones theme came up from time to time. But aside from that, the other themes that Williams wrote for this film, they kinda got left in the background to my ears. I didn't really pick up anything else worth noting. I mean, of course it still worked in the movie, but I think Raiders still has the best score of the entire series so far. But in the end, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, I still had a blast with it. Some minor gripes here and there, but all in all, I honestly don't know if I like this one more than Raiders of the Lost Ark or not, but I think I might just. I just have so much fun watching Harrison Ford and Sean Connery banter back and forth on screen. That's just so entertaining to me. This movie takes it back to what was great and so iconic about Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is that fun archaeological treasure hunt, and it just makes it more fun. I think it's just as fun and enjoyable as any Indiana Jones adventure should be. So, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, have you seen it? What are your thoughts on it? And where does it rank among all the Indiana Jones films for you? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you for subscribing. Peace!